So without further ado, I would like to turn the floor over to Helen Smith and her colleagues at the Eastman School of Music for their panel presentation, How Does Synchronous Distance Learning Flourish at a Strategic Level at Music Institutions? And I think that's a very interesting topic to be discussing, segueing from Michael Tilson Thomas's final remarks. And so I turn it over to you, Helen. Thank you. Right, we're not hearing you quite well, Helen. It's a little soft.
Okay.
Oh, there you are. It's coming through a little better now.
Yes. Is it coming through better now? I think. Is the sound okay now for everybody? Can you hear us?
Yeah, maybe if you could bring the microphone just a little bit closer. We're definitely in the ballpark.
Okay. How are we doing now? Is this improving?
Absolutely. Thank you.
So we are now loud and clear, 100% confirmed, ready to go, yes? Okay.
Systems going.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Christiane. Thank you for the invitation. We're delighted to be part of this. This is such an exciting event, and I think we're particularly honored to be following on from those two very esteemed speakers. That's quite an introduction. So I know many of you out there. I'm Helen Smith. I'm Director of Technology and Media Production here at Eastman. And I'm going to set the scene and ask some questions. But first of all, I'd like to introduce my colleagues around the table. I'd also like to just explain maybe our slightly reduced lighting. Just before we went live, actually, we had a first. We had a complete system power failure in our room here. So we're operating on backup emergency generator, if you like. So that was a very timely reminder of what can happen with these live events. And unfortunately, we missed the last few minutes because the call was also dropped. So again, we apologize for our look and the fact that we just missed the last few minutes. But I would now like to hand over to my colleagues to talk a little about who they are and what their interests are.
My name is James Vandermark. I'm the professor of double bass and co-chair of the string department here at the Eastman School. My interest is perhaps an obvious one as an instrumentalist, fascinated with the distance learning process. I have done a couple of Internet 2 classes with the Royal Norwegian Conservatory, and I think because of my interest and background also in film and television production, the development of this whole process is of particular interest to me.
My name is Abra Bush. I'm the Assistant Dean of Academic Affairs, and my role in this is that I coordinate international activities for Eastman, including some of the affiliation agreements and memoranda of understanding with our partners around the world, and also do work with our conservatory exchange program. So I'm interested in how those things can be mutually beneficial to both us and our partners abroad.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm Jamal Rossi. I'm the Executive Associate Dean here at Eastman. I work closely with Helen in really thinking about the opportunities that we have and how best to invest our resources, both human and financial, in terms of those opportunities that are likely to not only pay the greatest dividends, but are those opportunities that have longevity to them. There are so many opportunities that come along, and thinking through how are we going to sort through these to those that likely will have legs and will help us to the next level of technology. So look forward to the conversation.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Dunsby. I represent the theory department at Eastman. We teach all Eastman students. We have a pedagogical strand to our work, but we're also very research-oriented. And one of the fields that we're very interested in is what theory can learn from performers, from real interpretations. And this kind of medium is a steal from that point of view. There's a lot to be learned from it, we think.
Thank you. So as you can all hear, we cover a wide range of interests here. Eastman has been doing video conferencing, I would say, for about 10 years. Similar to Manhattan and others, we started off with a very basic Polycom system. We're very happy now to have the new latest and greatest Polycom system, and as we are now realizing, this really means that we can practically deliver anything, as your conference is entitled, anytime, anywhere. It's a mobile system. We can now say yes to any of the faculty suggestions. We can also potentially say yes to all the many invitations that we have to take part. So anything is possible now. I'm sure that we all feel that over the last few years, it's always been a bit of a question mark. Will the network work? Will the audio work? Can we actually do it? And we've been through all of those can you hear me, see me tests, and we get to the end of that and we go, oh, it worked. Now it's almost guaranteed to work. So really we're asking the questions now of, as Jamal said, where is this going at a strategic level? One of the things that I've noticed, I've been lucky enough to participate in many conferences, internet to member meetings, performance arts advisory groups, and I've definitely noticed there's some fascinating information sharing based on the what. What events are we all doing? And there's some amazing work going on. There's also a lot of discussion about the how, about the technology. And I was just actually at an Internet to Advisory Group meeting last night, and I was hearing so much about 3D, immersive, HD, multi-channel, green screens. Oh my goodness, it was just quite overwhelming. And I thought, oh gosh, is this really where it's all going? And then somebody else was saying, well, all I need to do is try and persuade my faculty this is something they should get involved in. So I think that we're really all at the point now of perhaps taking a step back, recognizing what we've all achieved over the last 10 years or however long we've all been working in this, recognizing the point that we're at. And I think, as maybe one of the other speakers already had said, we're at the tipping point or the turning point, and recognizing probably that this technology is about to become as ubiquitous as email or web or audio recording or websites, and just really recognizing the impact that this might have for our institutions. If we said, where is this going to be in 5 or 10 years? How is that potentially going to impact our curriculum? Will it enrich it? Will we need to increase our resources? Will we need to stop doing things? Will we need to change the way that we teach? Will it change any financial models for the better or the worse? And I think that we would be really interested in hearing at the end of this discussion, or even during it, if it's okay with the moderators, we'll be happy to have people join in during this. Does anybody have any answers to this? We're really at the point of looking at this in a very broad, organic way. I know many of you have targeted programs, faculty work, particular departments, things that you've been doing for years. Maybe every Monday afternoon you connect with a certain institution or a certain faculty member. We're not at that point. We've been doing it on a very ad hoc basis, and it's just about to blossom and flourish and take off, and we're about to jump off that cliff, and we're trying to figure out what is that going to look like and recognize it. And maybe some of you have already jumped off or have the same fears as us. So that's my thought. So I don't know if any of my colleagues would like to chime in on any of that.
Oh, I like the notion of jumping off the cliff with the regularity of performance. But I think that one of the things that certainly is appealing to me as an instrumentalist is to go beyond the occasional ad hoc performance. And with the advancement in technology, it certainly seems as though it would be something that, given the infrastructure that we have now, it should be something that we can all benefit from the mere frequency of event, and the assurance that those Luddites that Tom Hampson had cited will now probably be converted by having more opportunity to see what will be taking place with greater frequency.
I think one of the challenges right now is there is so much unknown, and we don't have a crystal ball to say this is what it is leading to. In thinking about this morning, I was actually thinking about our facility. So the school's 90 years old, and the building was built in 1921. So thinking about the state-of-art technology that was put into the building at that time. One was a room for projecting silent films so that organists could practice accompanying with them. And another was the intercom that is built into the wall so you could pick it up and talk to a central office. And I'm thinking, okay, those were state of art, but they had definitive purposes. We knew what they were going to be used for. At the same time, in the 1920s, I think about the Dick Tracy cartoons that were being written with the guy wearing a watch talking to somebody. And with the iPhone 4S launch just yesterday, here 90 years later, that exists. But we weren't building infrastructure into our facilities and our schools at that time for that kind of thing. So I think today when we think about sort of this technology, it really is, how is it going to, as Mr. Hampson said, how is it going to augment really the making of music, the learning of music, and ultimately, I agree with him, bringing people together into live sessions together. I think it is just a means of getting people into the same room. So again, it's investing in something that is unknown, unlike I think in previous generations where the purposes perhaps were more clearly defined.
And I think it is about risk-taking as well and setting priorities when you don't really understand what you're walking into, and being able to manage the resources as well. And I know that whenever I've worked with any colleagues, just trying to schedule anything, an engineer or potentially several engineers, or fitting in with somebody's schedule, or getting the rooms to work, there are so many logistical things to consider. Then it's really a question of everybody recognizing, is this the priority for both our institutions for this program, and to actually start shifting things which have maybe been set in stone for decades. Is this going to be a catalyst for change in order for this to move ahead? And again, these are the kind of questions that I think we'd love to hear from anybody else who maybe might have made some of those shifts already, and maybe we could learn from them, from people who have taken the risk. I don't know if there's any conversations that are already out there of people who would be able to share it either during this conference or maybe in some post-conference conversation somehow. Okay, so yes, so I guess not at the moment. So I think that I would definitely also like to move the conversation out to something that's more strategic in terms of admissions and recruitment, auditions and global reach. Because at the moment we can obviously reach people in a particular class or a particular professor or faculty member, but we're also looking, I think certainly my academic colleagues can speak more to this, but looking at particular geographical areas for people we might want to attract, and really where does the whole international side of Eastman's or any music school's work come in? Is this something that we should be considering when we're looking at who our partner institutions or locations, where they might be? How does it fit in with any exchange programs or agreements that we might have in place?
I know that we spent a great deal of time this summer having a larger conversation about some of these issues, and part of it is the value-added component for both institutions, making sure that all of our projects have value to us, and as Helen said, some of the issues of the amount of just personnel time, facilities usage, all of these things that go into setting this up. So making sure that there's that value for both sets of parties, both for faculty, staff, and students. We feel like it's important to include all of those constituents when we talk about value added. But the other part of the conversation was how then do we address the possibility of using this technology for recruiting, for admissions information, for possibly master classes with strategic institutions that are K-12 or high school organizations, how we can best use what we have in place to augment, again, that word that's been used this morning, all of our strategic initiatives here on campus. I'm curious if any of you do use Internet 2 or Polycom for any of your recruiting efforts, whether you do it for auditions, whether you might do it for masterclass situations, outside of just the normal exchange of ideas at the conservatory level. what you are doing institutionally.
I don't know that we have an answer for that, but we do have a question from, actually we do have an answer from that. I'm going to turn it over to Christian Orto, and then after that I know George Hess has a question as well.
First of all, I want to thank you all for your comments. We are exactly in a very similar place at Manhattan School, obviously using the technology for curricular purposes, and then extracurricular, if you will, recruitment, strategic planning, remote auditioning. These are, even our board of trustees are using this technology because they can't all be at the meetings. So I think it's really important to recognize in our environments that we can use it both in the educational realm as well as within the institution. And that's an important aspect. One thing I did a few years back to help integrate the technology into the fabric of the institution was to start an advisory committee. And it seems in many ways you have that at Eastman. But the advisory committee is made up of faculty, senior administration, and students. And the whole point of that is to create a sense of ownership amongst them so that they can indeed feel that it's really, as you say, getting back to what is the need? Why are we doing this? Making it very integral to the programs. And I like when they come up with programmatic ideas, or they say, oh, we would like to work with this conservatory, or, I'd like my colleague over here, that sort of thing. So that's the first thing. And the second thing now is we are now setting it up with our masterclass, our peer masterclass exchanges, as almost a season, if you will. So we are now at the point where we have our 11-12 season planned, if you will, of our various peer exchanges. And we have to at this point. For it to be institutionalized, we have to fit in with the performance calendar. Otherwise, it'll just be these one-offs that happen, and they can't get, students are too busy, faculty are too busy. You can't just ask people to show up. We all know what our environments look like and how busy and chaotic they can be. So I found that this is an essential step, that I have my season planned, I'd like June, if you will, June, July of the prior school year, and then getting it up and running. On the level of recruitment, and then I'll certainly stop, but I could go on and on. On the level of recruitment, we do recruitment demos with feeder schools. So we've identified a few feeder schools, our admissions department has, I should say, that we have a good number of applicants every year. And we connect back to those institutions for an introductory session. And interestingly, the first years that we did it, we included former students of that feeder school, plus faculty. It was a very nice thing, but it was a little stilted. And then the following year, what we did is we asked the faculty not to be at these meetings, but rather make it a peer-to-peer, a student-to-student exchange. Hey, what's it really like at Manhattan School? What's it like to live? What is the dorm life like? Oh, and then they can relate it back to the home institution. So we found, and then also we added performance to that. So after the exchange, then the students that are here now at Manhattan School that went to that feeder school perform out on their instruments or ensembles. And that kind of grassroots, peer-to-peer recruitment, putting it in their hands, I think is a very, very valuable tool and something that we should all look to expanding with our various constituents.
And how have you assessed whether or not that's been beneficial to you?
Well, again, that's a great question. No, that's assessed on the recruitment side, or
either the season of master classes and Internet 2 activities or the recruitment issues.
Right. So on the recruitment, we have seen it actually in returns in terms of those particular students coming to Manhattan School. So to say that that is why they came, we cannot say, but certainly was perhaps a contributing factor to helping a student make a decision about coming to the school. Every one of our programs that we do now, getting over to the content side, are evaluated. Every one of them. So we have a teacher evaluation and a student evaluation. We're constantly checking in, again, to see about the efficacy, the educational value of the sessions as we go along, so that we're not working in a vacuum. So
that's great. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. If we can get George Hess's question in now, too, that might open up the discussion a little bit more. George, are you out there?
Yes, I'm here. I have one question myself, and then one of our students actually has a question for you. My question for you is what steps have you taken to overcome the reticence of your faculty to abandon the traditional methods of auditioning and recruiting and such, and adopt this type of method?
Jim, want to take that?
Yeah, I think that we're utilizing it with those faculty who are interested in doing it and embracing it, as opposed to trying to force it to those who do not. And so I think part of it is just success breeds success. As people use it and they find out this is much better than I imagined, word spreads. It's even the difference between sending tapes or DVDs in the past to now just uploading an audition online, and a person can listen to the audition in the comfort of their own home on their computer in their own time. I think once the faculty experience that, they're very quick to embrace it. And I think if it doesn't work, we'll know that, and we probably wouldn't go down that road a whole lot further.
And George, you said you had a follow-up from a student as well there?
Hi, I'm a double bass student here at Yangsu-To Conservatory. I actually met you, Mr. Vandermark, when I came out to Eastman a few years back, but
Great.
I'm kind of nervous. I'm kind of in awe that this is all happening right now.
So are we.
You're not the only one.
And Michael Tilson Thomas and everything. It's just incredible. But it was just occurring to me during this whole, presentation today. Yangsu-To, I guess we just launched a joint degree program with the Peabody Institute, and we can do I think it's a year and a half of our 4-year studies here at Peabody. And, it's very competitive. There's only about 4 students picked for each year. I mean, they just started it. But I was thinking, I know this is all just starting out, the internet too, and it's kind of developing stages, but what about some kind of, not really dual degree thing, but maybe a lesson? I was thinking how cool would it be if I could get a lesson, via, internet too, with Professor Vandermark or, Max Demoff at Cleveland or Tim Cobb at Manhattan or something. And in fact, Ira Gold at Peabody, the new double bass professor there, we couldn't schedule a video conference, so we're going to do a Skype lesson here pretty soon. But the quality is not nearly as good as this. And I was just wondering, if that, what you guys thought about, maybe that being a possibility, or included in the program, of study wherever you're at, and how those lessons would be different from. Obviously it's not like a live lesson, but, Michael Tilson Thomas was saying, Vienna Philharmonic people are just showing their bowings and, talking about music. And so I just was wondering what you guys thought about that.
Well, thank you very much for your inquiry. And indeed, this is what we're planning to do, so that this sort of lesson format is something that we have done here at Eastman with other schools of music, other conservatories throughout the world. I'm not sure that we have as yet done one with your school, but this is a marvelous idea. Thank you for the hint. And indeed, I'd be most happy to see you at some point here in the cyber world to give you a lesson. The fascinating thing about the Internet 2 format is that it is a real-time, sort of real-life lesson, as you will, and it actually ends up being far more intimate than one might expect without having seen it. I became very convinced of the value of this really the very first time that I saw it, and I've been in discussion with Helen and others here about how to make it even more valuable in the future. One of the things that Thomas Hampson was suggesting was the sort of augmentation of intimacy. And one of the things that's intrigued me about the whole process, first of all, is that now there is so little delay in hearing your the distance person, the distance player at the other conservatory, that it seems far more immediate. But the other thing that I think may be coming in the very near future that should make this even more appealing is that we might, I hope, be able to go beyond the fixed camera. This, I think, is something that's going to be of real value to instrumentalists and probably to singers as well, so that with just some basic skills of a cameraman who will either have a steady cam arrangement or simply be able to move a camera on a dolly, you'll be able to get a zoom in on your left hand. So if I have a question about fingering, rather than holding up the sheet of fingerings that I've used, I can look in at your specific left hand or the way that you're vibrating or the way that you're holding your bow, and we can have a far more intimate and kind of immediate conversation that would really replicate a lesson that's happening right in this location or in your location. So I have great hope for what this format may be able to do now and in the very near future for really increasing that intimacy of education.
This is David Smook at Peabody, and I'd like to ask Steve Lates a question because I'm on the music theory faculty here, and our music theory faculty is quite interested in your new book and what you're doing and how you're applying this technology into the classroom. And honestly, I don't think people are really thinking much about full classroom in terms of use for this technology. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how that's working.
That's a really interesting question. I have to tell you, Steve Lates is not in this room. My dear colleague Steve is probably teaching at this very moment.
I'm sorry, I misheard the introductions. I'm so sorry.
If I were going to be mistaken for anybody, being mistaken for Steve is a tremendous privilege. Are we still online here?
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, I think. We are, yes.
Because, I certainly respond to the question because I understand where it's coming from. We spend a lot of time thinking about the pedagogical ways that we can use this kind of technology, and I think it's very, very early days. Lates himself has in fact produced an online pre-college theory course which doesn't really use this kind of technology, but at least it's a screen-based and very, very successful course. So we're thinking through this, and I think my personal message in this forum is to say that we just want to share ideas. We're not sure that we really know around the world how people are thinking about the best pedagogical applications of this technology. It seems so potentially rich. I suspect there's a lot more going on out there than most of us individually are aware of. So I'm asking for communication of ideas. And I think Steve Lates would say the same. But next time we'll have him here to answer the question.
I apologize for the mistaken identity. It's are there any other questions from the audience? I'm not seeing any coming up on the chat, but if anyone does have one, now would be a good time to just jump in. No? I thought I heard a sound of someone turning on a microphone there for a second. Well, I guess part of this that I find Sorry? Sorry, I thought I heard something. Part of what I find interesting about this is really, I think what you're raising the question of from a conservatory, who wants to, really where you're coming from this is wanting to reach out from a position of having the stellar faculty at Eastman and having the facilities at Eastman, and wanting to reach out to people across the globe. And I'm wondering what sort of reaction you've had from other institutions, what sort of partnerships you might be developing right now.
Some of the specifics. I think, thank you for saying that. We tend to be quite modest, but with, being Eastman, we do get quite a lot of invitations. So it is one of the challenges to figure out how we walk into some of these partnerships. For example, I'm just thinking of some of the ones we've just talked about or else done in the last 3 weeks or so. We did 2 with the Australian National University. We broadcast live from our new recital hall. In fact, Jonathan did one of those. We also had Paul Odette, who did a lute recital to 4 institutions across Australia. We're also working with colleagues in Copenhagen, looking at their organ inauguration event and organ workshops and masterclasses. We're also talking with Temple University for some music education projects. We also have another one coming up very soon, again with Jonathan, with the College of Fine Arts at Boston University, and with our colleagues there at the Royal College of Music, and with Hull University in Yorkshire. We're also putting together a potential faculty showcase with Skidmore College, also in upstate New York. And that's just things that we've been talking about in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And there's many others as well. So that is our opportunity and our challenge. Thank you for asking the question.
Yes, and have you found the responses have been good? Are you finding any problems with the connecting with the technology?
No, the technology has been seamless. You get the first initial hiccup maybe, but then once you get past that, everything has worked. Everything has been seamless so far.
I'm sure you all know from your own experience, there's a bit of an artificial environment in just doing this. I mean, even just sitting here with unusual lighting, those things are out of the ordinary. But that technology falls away very quickly, and it gets back to one-on-one relationships and discussions. And so again, it's quite amazing how that technology very quickly fades into the background, and you can get to the business at hand of either teaching, discussing, having the master class that is underway.
I think too the real challenge for us is sorting through the invitations that we have and really finding the ones that are going to have the most value for all of us and all of our students and for your students. Because frankly, at this point, we've got more invitations than what I think we can manage. So it's a question of what's going to be the most beneficial to everyone.
I love the idea of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that is a really wonderful way to manage that, and something we can think more about.
I'd love to get to that point. Yes, really about tying it in with our academic programs, but also with our performance calendar as well. If we can achieve that, then I think we've kind of got it under control, if you like.
Yeah, I would add to that. It definitely has been challenging because it's all the usual issues of committing artists and space allocation and technical staffing way ahead of the curve. But I think it's an absolute necessity to get integrated into the fabric of the institution, to be in the printed materials, to be in the website, to have a voice, if you will, so that others are completely aware of what you're doing. I think is absolutely a key step, and I'd like to see it continue to improve here in our timeline as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's an excellent point. Well, thank you so much for the presentation. This has been absolutely fascinating, all 3 of what we've had thus far. I'm very much looking forward to the next. We have coming up now a presentation called Music, Masters, and Meridians. And this will be a co-presentation by Tanya Lisboa, who is a research fellow and video conferencing projects manager at the Royal College of Music in London, along with Greg Howe, who is the director of the Cleveland Institute of Music's distance learning program. And so without further ado, I'd like to turn things over to Tanya and Greg.
Thank you. Thanks, David, for the introduction.